Welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of people can relate to. And it was inspired by Eric from Time Retires. He was talking about what happens when you have more pensions than you can count. We've all heard these stories about people discovering pensions that they didn't even know they had. It's kind of like finding buried treasure. Mm-hmm. Except this treasure is your retirement.
Yeah, it's true. It's a phenomenon we're seeing increasingly these days.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with these sort of changing career patterns. We're not in our grandparents' generation anymore where you're in one job for life.
Right, exactly. And we were inspired by Eric from Time to Retire, who shared his experience of finding seven pensions while he was going through some paperwork. And it really kind of highlights this challenge that we face in this modern working world.
And what's really fascinating, I think, here is it's not just the number of pensions, but it's also the sort of advent of auto-enrollment, which has been fantastic for boosting retirement savings because it automatically takes those contributions from our salaries. But it also means that every time we switch jobs, there's a chance we're creating a new pension pot.
Right. So rather than having one big treasure chest, we have a whole bunch of little ones scattered around. And we might not even remember where they all are.
Exactly. And that's where the challenges really start, because keeping track of multiple pensions can feel like you're trying to navigate through a jungle. You've got different providers. You've got different investment strategies, different fee structures. It's a lot to manage.
Yeah. And with those smaller pots, they might not be growing as much as they could because of higher fees. It's like having leaks in all those treasure chests.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And then, beyond just the financial aspect of it, there's an emotional toll, too. It's easy to feel really overwhelmed and even anxious when you're trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can lead to people just ignoring their pensions entirely, which defeats the whole purpose of saving for retirement in the first place.
Exactly. So what can we do about it? Well, one option that Eric explored was pension consolidation, which is basically the idea of bringing all of those separate pots together into one larger, easier to manage fund.
So it's like taking all those little treasure chests and just combining it into one giant vault.
Exactly. Consolidation can really simplify things. You're only dealing with one provider, one set of fees, and you have one overall picture of your retirement savings.
Right. And presumably with that larger pot, you might be able to negotiate lower fees.
Yeah.
So you're maximizing your returns. Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, there are definitely potential benefits to consolidation, but it's really important to remember that it isn't always the best approach.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Well, sometimes those seemingly insignificant pensions that you've forgotten about might actually come with valuable benefits or guarantees that you wouldn't want to lose.
Okay, like what kind of benefits? Give me an example.
Sure. So for instance, some pensions might offer a guaranteed income for life, or they might allow you to access your funds earlier than usual, which could be really advantageous in certain situations. And transferring those types of pensions into a consolidated pot could actually mean that you lose those valuable features.
Okay, so it's not just about simplifying. It's about making sure that you're not actually losing out on any of those really important benefits in the process.
Exactly. One size doesn't fit all when it comes to pensions.
Right. That makes sense. So if consolidation isn't always the answer then, what other options do people have when they're faced with this pension jungle?
That's a great question and one we'll definitely delve into. But first, let's take a closer look at Eric's experience with consolidation and see what we can learn from his journey.
Okay, let's unpack his story and see what gems of wisdom he's unearthed for us.
So Eric found himself facing this pension jungle and decided that consolidation was the right move for him. He chose to go with the self-invested personal pension, or SIPP for short.
Yes, SIPPs. I've heard of these. They seem to be gaining popularity, but I got to be honest, the whole concept still feels a little bit mysterious to me. What are they exactly? And why did Eric choose this particular route?
Yeah, so a SIPP is essentially a type of pension that gives you more control over your investments. So instead of having a limited range of funds chosen by your pension provider, you get to pick and choose from a wider variety of assets like stocks, bonds, and even property.
So it's like having your own personal investment portfolio, but for your retirement savings.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why people like SIPPs, because it gives them more flexibility. And potentially higher returns if they're savvy investors.
But wouldn't that also mean taking on more risk? Like, isn't it kind of safer to let the experts manage your pension investments?
Well, that's a valid concern. With the SIPP, you do have more responsibility for making investment decisions. So it's really important to do your research, understand your risk tolerance, and potentially seek advice from a financial advisor if needed.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So Eric went with the SIPP. But how did he actually go about consolidating all of his pensions into this one account? Like, was it a complicated process?
Well, from what Eric shared, it was surprisingly straightforward. He opened a SIPP account with a provider called Freetrade, which is known for its user-friendly app, and then used the app to initiate transfers from his other pension providers.
Wow, so he basically did it all through his phone. That's pretty incredible. Technology really is changing the game when it comes to managing our finances.
It certainly is. However, while Eric's experience highlights the ease of use that some platforms offer, it's crucial to remember that not all SIPP providers are created equal.
So what should people be looking for when they're choosing a SIPP provider?
Well, there's a couple of key factors to consider. First and foremost, fees. Those can really eat into your returns over time, so it's important to compare fees across different providers and make sure you understand their fee structure.
Right, those hidden costs can really sneak up on you. What else should we be aware of?
Investment options. Some providers have a wider range of investment choices than others, so make sure they align with your investment strategy and your risk tolerance. Also, look at their reputation and track record. You want to choose a provider that's financially stable and trustworthy.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you're trusting them with your retirement savings.
Exactly. And finally, consider the platform's user experience. You know, how easy is it to navigate their website or app? Do they offer good customer support?
So it's really about finding the right fit for your needs and your preferences. It's kind of like choosing a bank. You want one that's reliable, has the features you need, and makes your life easier.
Yeah, I like that analogy. It's about finding a financial partner that you feel comfortable working with, not just a faceless institution.
So Eric's story gives us a little glimpse into the world of SIPPs and the potential benefits of consolidation. But what about those of us who might not be ready to take the plunge with a SIPP? Or maybe we have pensions with like unique features that we don't want to lose. What other strategies can we use to kind of tame this pension jungle?
That's a great question. It brings us to a really crucial point. Consolidation isn't the only solution. In fact, sometimes the best approach is to simply gain a clearer understanding of what you have and how it's performing.
So step one is to kind of take stock of our pension situation.
Exactly. Gather all of your statements. Make a list of all your providers. Note down key details like the type of pension, the current value, the investment strategy, and the fees that you're paying.
It's like creating a map of our pension jungle.
Exactly. And once you have that overview, you can start to analyze each pension individually. Is it performing well? Are the fees reasonable? Does it align with your overall retirement goals?
Okay, so knowledge is power. The more we understand about each pension, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions about them.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to reach out to your pension providers and ask questions. They're there to help you understand your plan and your options.
Okay, this is starting to feel a little less overwhelming already. Just by taking the time to gather the information and organize our pensions, we're already gaining a little more control over our retirement savings.
You got it. And that sense of control is essential for making smart financial decisions.
So we've talked about consolidation. We've talked about kind of taking stock of our pensions. But what about actually making those pensions work harder for us? What are some proactive steps we can take to maximize our retirement savings?
That's where things get really interesting, and it's a topic that deserves its own deep dive.
All right, let's dive into those proactive steps. We've mapped our pension jungle. We've got a handle on what's out there.
Yeah.
Now, how do we make those pensions work as hard as they can for our future selves?
Well, the first thing to consider is your investment strategy. Are your pensions invested in a way that aligns with your risk tolerance and your long-term goals?
That's a good point. I guess we kind of tend to set up a pension and then just forget about it, assuming that it's taking care of itself.
Yeah, it's a common misconception. But remember, pensions are investments. And just like any investment, they require a bit of attention and potentially some adjustments along the way.
So where do we even begin? What are some key things to think about when it comes to our pension investments?
One important factor is your time horizon. How many years do you have until retirement? If you're younger, you might be more comfortable with a higher risk, higher reward strategy because you have more time to recover from any potential market downturns.
Right. But as you get closer to retirement, you probably want to shift to a more conservative approach to kind of protect those savings.
Exactly. It's about finding that right balance between growth and security. Another thing to consider is diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Make sure your pension investments are spread across different asset classes, like stocks, bonds, and property to reduce risk.
So it's like building a well-rounded team, each player with their own strengths and weaknesses.
I love that analogy. Now, beyond investment strategy, another proactive step is to review your contribution levels. Are you putting in enough to actually reach your retirement income goals?
Ooh, that's a scary question. I think a lot of us avoid even thinking about that.
I know it's understandable, but remember, even small increases in contributions can make a big difference over time, especially if you start early. And there are often tax benefits to contributing to a pension, so it's worth exploring those as well.
Okay, so we've got to check our investments, boost our contributions if possible. Any other gems of wisdom for us?
Well, this might sound obvious, but it's often overlooked. Stay informed. Keep an eye on how your pensions are performing, review your statements regularly, and don't be afraid to ask your providers for clarification or guidance.
So it's all about being proactive, engaged, and informed when it comes to our pensions.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to navigate this journey alone. There are resources available, like financial advisors or pension specialists, who can provide personalized advice and support.
Great. So to sum it all up, we've learned that taming our pension jungle, it's a multi-step process. It starts with awareness, understanding what pensions we have and where they are. Then it's about exploring options like consolidation, but only if it truly benefits our individual situation. And finally, it's about taking those proactive steps to make sure our pensions are working for us, not against us.
You've captured it perfectly. By taking charge of our pensions, we're taking charge of our financial futures.
It is empowering, isn't it, to realize that we have the power to shape our retirement and create a future where we can enjoy those golden years with financial security and peace of mind.
Absolutely. And we hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and the motivation to start that journey today.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of pensions, inspired by Eric from Time to Retire. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two, maybe even discovered a hidden pension treasure of your own along the way.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
And remember, your future self will thank you for it